Hey, it's Road Trip with Renee, and I have been following the Diddy case. I wanted to just go over some key details that I have came across. On Monday, they selected a jury, and in that jury, there are 12 members, 8 men, 4 women. They age from 30 years old all the way up to 74 years old. So opening statements did start on Monday, and Diddy was wearing a white sweater when he came into the courtroom. Emily Johnson, which is on the prosecutor's team, introduced who Diddy was and noted that he has been accused of kidnapping, of arson, of drugs, of sex crimes. One thing I have heard, though, from people that were in the courtroom is that the opening statement from the prosecutors kind of fell flat. You would think that they would have came out like guns a-blazing, but for some reason it just seems kind of bland in a sense. Also, they noted that he trapped Cassie in a 10-album deal. And not only did he trap her in a 10-album deal in the music industry, but then he also traps her in his relationship as well. I thought that that was kind of a key point of the opening statement from the prosecutors. I think they should have focused on that more, though. They also introduced another woman named Jane, his former girlfriend that he also abused. And then there was a girl named Mia that used to work for Diddy, and Mia is also accusing Diddy of doing heinous things to her as well. Along with all of the victims that are in there, they're also noting that his entire staff really covered up all of his crimes. And so that is where these charges are coming in, is that there was like a whole enterprise behind the abuse. There were drugs and, again, lots of sex crimes. So after the prosecutors did their opening statements, then the defense went ahead and started their opening statements. Now, it looks like Miss Garrigo, which is one of Diddy's attorneys, she's the one that started off. And one of the people, which is Rotten Mango, who is a YouTuber, she's actually in the courtroom. She noted that the attorney was wearing white nail polish. And the weird thing about that is that Diddy used to make Cassie wear white nail polish. So I thought that that was kind of like a weird thing that she noticed, and it's weird that she would wear white nail polish. Miss Garrigo just kind of introduced Diddy as a complicated man. She said that all of these relationships were consensual, and along with introducing him as just a normal man instead of like the pop star he is, they also downplayed the crimes and allegations that are against him. They said, you know, domestic violence did happen, but that's it. It wasn't sex trafficking. It wasn't this big racketeering scheme that everyone is calling it. It was simply just a man that was jealous, and sometimes he was not in control of his anger. And they also added that he loves baby oil, which is like, what in the world? I would love that out if I was the attorney. So they're focusing, though, completely on that this was a free choice, consensual relationship, and they're kind of twisting what happened with Cassie and Diddy. They brought up a story that Cassie went to Kim Porter's funeral, and Kim Porter is the mother of Diddy's children. And while they were at the funeral, Diddy said that Kim was his soulmate, and that is what made Cassie go over the edge and decide that she didn't want to be with him anymore, and that she was going to kind of get like revenge, it kind of feels like. They also said that all of the videos that were found of Cassie in sexual intercourse with other men, all were from Cassie's device. The thing with that, though, is that Diddy could have deleted all that stuff. You know, it's not like it's permanent. You know, you can really delete anything. Them saying that it's on Cassie's devices doesn't necessarily mean anything to me, because Diddy could have had them and he just got rid of them before anyone found them. So they also noted, though, that after Kim's funeral, Diddy and Cassie never saw each other again. Now, is that because they were already not seeing each other and she just wanted to be respectful and go to Kim Porter's funeral with him? Or is it true that after he said the soulmate thing, Cassie was like, I'm never going to get what I want out of this? And as someone that's an outsider viewing this relationship, I have always thought that Cassie wanted to get married to Diddy. So that is possible. You know, she finally had just been like, I'm not going to do this anymore, and enough was enough. The thing with being abused, though, is that sometimes you have a connection with your abuser and you feel like you can change them. So I can't fault her for not leaving sooner, because he may have not let her leave. I don't know how I feel about that whole Cassie heard that Kim was the love of his life, and then all of a sudden she just was like done. So The defense also says that Jane, which is the other person, is just a jealous ex-girlfriend, and they're kind of trying to assassinate her character as well, trying to make it seem like she was the problem and that Diddy was not, which I think with evidence we will probably see a different side of that story. Another thing that I heard from Rotten Mango today was that the defense attorneys actually asked for Cassie to be seated before the jury entered the room. And the reason that is because Cassie is 8 months pregnant. And so they didn't want Cassie to walk past the jurors because that can definitely have a impact on the jurors. So I thought that was interesting as well. I am watching Fox 5, and Fox 5 says, during opening statements, prosecutors claim that Diddy used his business to coerce women into drug-fueled sexual encounters, employing violence and blackmail. Now, on Diddy's team, they're arguing that this case completely misrepresents what was a consensual relationship into something that is sex trafficking. And they're also saying that his behavior and lifestyle was not necessarily criminal. The domestic violence definitely is criminal, but maybe what they're saying is that having Cassie sleep with like escorts was not. I still don't really understand that aspect though of having your girlfriend sleep with an escort. I asked one of my friends if he would ever have his girlfriend sleep with someone else and like he watch it, and it was a hard no. So I don't really understand that logic, but Cassie does end up testifying on the second day. So we will hear from her exactly what happened and what are her thoughts. The first witness in this case happens to be the security guard that was at the Intercontinental Hotel. And the Intercontinental Hotel is where the video took place of Diddy abusing Cassie in the hallway as she was trying to get onto the elevator. You'll see in the video, Cassie ends up picking up the hotel phone and she's talking to someone, and that person alerts the security guard and says, hey, there's something going on the 6th floor, we need you to go check it. So he checks the camera and he sees that a black man is walking back and forth. So he decides to go ahead and go up there just because he didn't see a woman and he wanted to make sure that everything was okay. When he gets out of the elevator, he sees Diddy in a towel and socks. And he also sees a woman that is wearing a hoodie in the corner. And he notes that Diddy had a devilish stare. He also notices that there's broken glass from the flower vase. And he tells Diddy and Cassie that there's other guests in the hotel and that they need to go back to their room. Diddy then tells Cassie that she's not going to be able to leave, and the security guard says like, yes, she can leave if she wants to leave. And so he goes and he puts his foot in the door as they're walking in to make sure that Diddy would not close the door on him. So Cassie gets her stuff out of the hotel room and then she ends up leaving. As she's leaving, the security guard notices that there's another male that is fully clothed and he's sitting on a bed in the hotel. He doesn't say anything at all. So they don't really make a big point about it, but that is just an interesting observation that he made. As the security guard is leaving and Cassie's already out of the room, Diddy says hey, or he gets the security guard's attention, and then he holds up a wad of money, and the security guard says it's from his finger, his thumb, all the way up to his pinky finger of money, insinuating if I give you this much money, I don't want you to say shit, you know? And the security guard is not interested, and he just said, all the damages that were done in the hallway, you will have to pay for, and then he leaves. When the security guard goes downstairs, he sees that Cassie is at the valet parking area, and he asks Cassie if she wants to file charges. He notices that she has a purple mark on her eye, and she says no, she just wants to leave. And so after she leaves, the security guard goes back upstairs because he is telling Diddy that it's time to check out. And he notices that the random man that was there before is no longer there. Diddy then says something that the security guard writes into the report in 2016. Diddy says, I just don't want to lose anything and I could lose it all. And the security guard did note that, but there are some things that he didn't know. So when the defense comes and cross-examines him, they point out that the security guard did not put in his report that Cassie had any signs of abuse on her. The other thing is that the report notes that Diddy asked Cassie to leave instead of the other way around. Security guard just says, I didn't note every single detail, but I remember it. During the first witness's testimony, they are shown video of what happened in the hotel with Cassie and Diddy. And so the jurors can kind of get their own perspective from seeing that. The next witness is on the stand, and his name is Daniel Phillip. Now, he describes himself as a male stripper, and he has had interactions with both Cassie and Diddy. He says that sometime around 2012, he received money from Cassie to have sex with her. He testified, and he said Diddy was also present. The stripper also said that his bosses asked him to go to a hotel for a bachelorette party, and he thought he was just going to do a little striptease. But when he arrived at the hotel around midnight, Ventura, which is Cassie, was the only one standing in the doorway. When I arrived, Cassie opened the door and she asked if it was okay if it was just going to be us. And she was wearing a red lace lingerie outfit with high heels. And according to the stripper, Cassie said that it was her birthday and that her husband wanted to do something special for her. So she asked him if he would mind rubbing baby oil on her and giving her a massage. Wherever things went from there was based on how comfortable he was. And Cassie gave him a few $1,000s, and she said she would tip him at the end. The stripper then said that a man was sitting in the room wearing a white robe, a hat, a bandana covering his face from his nose down. Phillips said that he immediately recognized the man's voice as Diddy's, though Diddy did not identify himself. Cassie also told the stripper at the time that her husband wasn't gay and that he wouldn't try to touch him. Phillips said that he had sex with Cassie while Combs was sitting in the corner masturbating, and then Combs gave him a couple thousand more before he left. The stripper then said that he had sex with Ventura in front of Combs a few more times after that in late 2013 and 2014. And he said that he'd meet them in a hotel or at either of their homes in New York. He was paid to have sex with Cassie on multiple occasions and described their interactions, saying that Diddy would direct him and then Cassie would have sex. He recounts one incident where he saw Diddy assault Cassie at her home, and he says he was shocked. Cassie was on the computer when Combs just shouted at her to come here. When Cassie responded that her personal information was on that computer, Combs came out and started dragging her by her hair into the bedroom. He testifies that Cassie was screaming and repeatedly saying, "I'm sorry." In my mind, I was going through my head, if I tried something, I might lose my life. When he asked why he didn't report the incident, he said, "My thoughts were that this was someone with unlimited power, and chances are that if I did go to the police, I might still end up losing my life." At some point, a visibly upset Cassie emerged from the other room. Combs asked if they were ready to continue. Phillips said he couldn't continue after that, though he thought he may have tried to act like everything was okay. He can't remember if he was paid that day. And then he continued to see the couple after that violent incident because he had developed kind of a friendship with Cassie. After the prosecutors have completed their examination of Phillip, they then go on a short break. CNN notes that during a portion of the graphic testimony when Phillips described having sex with Cassie as Diddy watched, Diddy's daughters ended up standing up and leaving the courtroom. They returned for a brief period, but then left again when the testimony continued, and when they started talking about sex again. After court takes a short break, then the cross-examination starts of Daniel Phillip, which is the male stripper. Phillip testified on cross-examination that he wasn't an active stripper or dancer when his boss asked him to go meet Cassie, and he testified that he would sometimes fill in if it was needed, and that his boss said that there was a request for a black male stripper and that no one was available that fit that description, so that's why he went. He did say that he thought that he was going for a bachelorette party, and the defense attorney asked Phillip if it appeared that Ventura was enjoying herself and was sexually aroused during their first encounter, and he says yes. The first day of court ends here, and Daniel Phillip will be back on the stand tomorrow to continue being cross-examined.